Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a good config day, too. Oh my gosh, so good to see all of you. My name is Catt Small. For those of you who don't know me, maybe you missed yesterday, I am a staff product designer at Dropbox. I am the author of a book called The Staff Designer, which came out in December of last year with Rosenfeld Media. Thank you, I am an artist and a maker, so you'll see lots of hand-drawn slides today. I'm also a game developer, and I am an event organizer, and I help organize the Game Devs of Color Expo, which happens this September. It's year number 11. Thank you. Okay, so you've been here, you've been having conversations, you've existed in design for maybe a number of years at this point. You can tell the vibe has been interesting as of late. Lots of developments. Maybe you're feeling a bit overwhelmed at times. You're trying your best to keep up. You're trying to prompt with the best of them. You're burning those tokens. Maybe you're having discussions and you're feeling a bit awkward, like you're behind, or you're maybe just trying to figure out how to land somewhere that makes sense. So I want to acknowledge that, and I will start this talk with a little bit of a story that maybe will make you feel more seen. So I live in New York City. Go Knicks, Knicks in 5. That's right, that's what I'm saying. And I am part of a couple of local design communities, and I'm also a huge fan of picnics. So the moment that the sun came out and the cherry blossoms were out, a friend Hang Shu and I were like, we gotta host a picnic. We decided to roll this picnic out. We told people the day before, look, we're doing a picnic tomorrow. Come through if you want. And of course, during this picnic, we are yapping. It's a bunch of designers, so we have to start talking shop. We catch up a little bit, and then we start talking about our workflows. And me, my friend Amy, and another person who showed up at the picnic were chatting, and we were discussing how we were trying to adapt to the changing landscape. And the person that we were talking to then said to us, "Figma is dead." And I'm like, ooh, okay, spicy, we love it. Tell me more. And so they were sharing some context about their own workflow. They let us know that they were working at a bit of a smaller startup and that they had found that it was, something that they maybe didn't need in their workflow. And I was like, sick, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, It sounds like you're in a 0-to-1 context. That makes a lot of sense. Hashtag move fast, break things, et cetera, be in those PRs. But for me, it was a little bit more complicated. I'm not able to really do that kind of work every single day because the problems that I work on often don't fit neatly into a prompt. And so what I have been doing recently is exploring to understand, what are the limits of where I can apply AI in my work, and I'm going to talk to you about that today. The big takeaway here is that I do find that AI can be really helpful for the work that I do, but that it has limits to that helpfulness. And so, I needed to explore and figure out where exactly in my own process those limits are. And that'll be what we talk about today. So I'm going to share 2 stories. I'm going to talk to you about a time when I found AI to be very helpful for my process of developing and shipping some work. And then I'm going to talk to you about a time where I found that it was actually subtracting from the work that I was doing and what I have learned from both of these cases. And this will be somewhat talking about the work that I do as a game developer, and it will be some talking about the work that I do as a product designer in my day job. So a little bit of each piece of myself will get to live in this talk. I'm an optimist, so I'm going to start with when it helped, of course. All right, so I recently tapped AI to help me make a game. I'll admit it, for anybody who's in game development in the room, I did this. This game is an experimental narrative game. It is about life, the choices that we make. It covers gender dynamics, social dynamics, and the hilarity of what I like to call work LARPing. And it's inspired by the Slack UI. So this is a screenshot from it. There's notifications that pop up at various points. You have to kind of swap between the different Slack instances and figure out how to balance all these parts of your life at the same time. I want to say that I know a lot about games at this point. I have been developing them for approximately 14 years at this point. So I do know how to program games, but I will be honest with you, I am a designer because I don't like programming. So I actually could have been a front-end engineer and decided, no, I'm going to go to the design side. I'm much more into that. It hurts my brain to program sometimes. As much as I am a logical person, I can be very hyper-logical. I will admit, I'm the first person to admit, I have cried out of frustration when trying to program at times. So I knew what I wanted to build, and I knew that I could sit down and I could fight the computer and figure out how to build it. But I was actually in the middle of taking a class while I was making this project, and that it was at a school. It was at a place called the School for Poetic Computation. And in a school setting, you have deadlines. So I said, I have 2 weeks to finish this game. I could spend that time fighting the computer and figuring out how to make the system and make it look exactly like Slack or similar to Slack. And at the same time, I have to write. I need to write a lot of things, and I ideally am focusing my time on that, because that's something that's unique for me, is the voice that I want to imbue in the characters in this game. And so I, in this case, decided, okay, I'm gonna see what happens. I'm gonna give AI the architecture. I'm gonna say exactly what to use. I'm gonna show it some references, and I'm going to tell it, I want to make it look like Slack. I want to use this exact framework which is called Yarn, which is a narrative framework. I want to make a web game that exports to HTML and JavaScript. And I need you to make the space for me to type all the content. And then I said, go for it. And so while it was doing that, I was actually sitting down by hand, mapping out all the characters I wanted to have in this game, and I was writing the content. And so, of course, I was, doing some of this by hand. I was doing some of this while typing, but essentially, I knew that this was the part that was really special and critical for this game to reach people. And the result was an experience that really pushed me, and it resonated with a lot of people. And one of the things that the people who played the game were really astounded by was the fact that I was able to write over 20 characters with distinct voices. And I also hand drew all 20 of their avatars as well. And a big reason that I could spend all of this time doing that is, again, because I retained a lot of my cognitive energy that otherwise I would have been using on building that architecture. So for me, as an indie developer, this was actually very, very helpful. I learned from this that AI is a powerful force multiplier. I really like what a friend of mine, Tom Takigayama, who is at JustWorks, Tom said that it's about being the driver, not the passenger, when you're working with AI. And this is something that he said to me while we were recording a podcast episode. I'm going to release some podcast episodes starting next week and for the next 8 weeks. This is one of the things that I'm talking about in all of them. How are you using AI? And I really liked this idea, and I felt like the work that I did here really underscored that. I essentially benefited from being the driver in this case, not the passenger. So that's one situation. Now let's talk about a situation when I felt challenged by using AI in my process, especially earlier in the process. So at Dropbox, I was asked to create a vision for a project that I was working on at that time. This was about maybe a couple months ago now. And Dropbox has over 700 million registered users worldwide. It has a complex design system. It's got nearly 20 years of product history. And that is a lot of context to keep track of. And frankly, I was feeling a bit overwhelmed, and I thought this could be a useful moment for me to try to use AI at the beginning of the work to see how it helped with problem framing and early visioning exercises. So I was using it, and I was asking myself, how do I feel? Does this help solve blank page syndrome? Is this something that I could use so that I don't feel, stressed or an aversion to that blank screen? I shared a bunch of context. I wrote up a prompt, and I said, hey, buddy, can you help by generating some screens based on the problem that I've given you, considering all of this context? And I tried this on a couple of services. I tried Figma, I tried ChatGPT, et cetera, to get a variety of different ideas. And I will be honest, I found that the nuance wasn't quite there in terms of how the output looked for me, and so it actually wasn't super time effective. I found that I actually benefited a lot more by actually sitting down and trying to draw some sketches. I did try drawing those sketches and then giving it to AI and saying, hey, can you, maybe does this work? Like if I gave you a little bit more? And then I ended up trying to instead actually move rectangles myself, and I said, okay, can you fill in the in-between states in this vision, or could you handle maybe some of the edge cases of the questions that we might get in the presentation I need to make? And what I was finding over time, as I was going back and forth, was that it was becoming more work to actually react to what I was receiving and to fix the output than to just do the work by myself, by hand. And this is something that people are finding when they are using AI earlier in their thinking at times. And essentially, this is a quote from a panel that I went to back in May at the Datadog New York City office. And essentially, they ended up realizing, okay, so if you are thinking about the actual hands-on user workflows and the ramifications where you need to do end-to-end thinking of how people move through the experience, AI can be supportive of illustrating the screens, but in a lot of cases, as designers, we've spent years building an understanding of how companies function and how our products work. And AI doesn't often have, it struggles to retain context rather. And there are people who are trying to resolve how over time the context can kind of start to meander a bit with something that's called context engineering. And I do hope that that works out because, over time, I want us to continue to do really great work and to continue to solve challenging problems. But I will be honest, one of the things I took away from this was that I'm good at design, I'm good at solving problems, I actually like being faced with these challenges, and I want to be the person who is creating the vision and defining the vision rather than being told what to do by the outputs of a prompt. And what I realized through the work that we ended up doing when I actually was hands-on facilitating these conversations was that my opinions were much stronger, and I felt like I was more connected to the work when I actually took the wheel from AI and drove. And the lovely thing is, because I was the person making these decisions about how we wanted to move forward with this project, I could actually explain them to other people, including leadership. And this is really important at a large company, right? Like, you have to be able to communicate to other people. You can't just make decisions in a vacuum. I need to convince other people on other teams that intersect with my work, and directors and VPs, that the work that I'm suggesting we start to do is going to positively impact the people that we are creating these experiences for. And that's a lot easier when you're the person making those decisions. So, I'm going to summarize what I learned from all of this and how I'm thinking about integrating AI into my work in the future. As we've seen, AI can be really powerful. We've seen a lot of announcements of ways that it can help us to create more awesome interactions and to create compelling experiences. But speed without direction will lead you down a dead end. And this is really critical. I said this a little bit yesterday, but I really strongly believe this. I also recently interviewed Megan Logan, who is a lead product designer at Stripe, for my podcast. And Megan said that it's really, really common for people who start early with AI prototyping to get married to a particular solution very quickly. And this is something that I have also observed numerous times since AI prototyping, in order to communicate your ideas, has gotten more popular. Essentially, you get really attached and you start running with it and you say, okay, this is the thing we're shipping. And what I've recognized is that I still want to do, and I still have to do, divergent and complex thinking, especially for the altitude of the solutions and the problems that I'm working at. And I'm down to do it with AI at certain points, and I'll explain that a little bit more. But overall, I need to be the person who is driving. So I always need to be the one defining the bounds and to make sure that I've deeply integrated the problem that the customers are facing into my own body. There we go. And again, as I said, that's because AI is a powerful force multiplier. But it needs you to know what to build. You are the person who's going to have to make ultimately the most messy and most terrifying decisions, and you need to have confidence in the direction that you and the team are moving in. I like to think of this as essentially making what I call a collage. You need to sift through everything. You need to see how everything connects, all the information comes together. And through those connections that you're making, as you're moving the pieces around, you're seeing the meaning, you are building that confidence, and you're figuring out what execution actually makes the most sense for our particular case. That can come only through the process of collaging. Eventually, as you do that work, as you find that meaning, you land somewhere really cool and unique. If you were there for the Should Designers Code 1.0 era, does anyone remember that? Anyone? Yeah, that's right. Neopets generation. That's right. That's right. If you remember when we moved from vanilla JavaScript, for example, to Angular to React, maybe some of what we're feeling right now feels familiar to you. It's a moment where essentially the new hotness is being declared, and we're all figuring out how it actually fits into our day-to-day lives. This is something I have actually been speaking about for 10 years at this point in different ways. We love our tools. We love our instruments of creation. And right now, we are figuring out what this instrument, AI, is good for, what it's best for. And so I will summarize all of this into what I think it's good for and what I would recommend against using it for. I believe strongly that AI is really, really valuable for situations where you need to do synthesis, for example. So if you have a bunch of research, if you have a bunch of data that you need to sift through, especially if you don't have a lot of time, then AI can be really helpful for identifying patterns and helping you figure out how to move forward. It can help you generate copy variants, for example. It can give you more options. It can give you placeholder content in design or help you integrate real data into the work that you're creating. It can help you prototype a contained, simple user flow. So I believe yesterday I mentioned a situation where you might want to show an error message, or maybe you want to create an animation that would show up at a certain point when you engage with UI in a certain way. It's really great for a simple user flow. It can help you find missing use cases. It can poke holes in your thinking. So I will sometimes ask, hey, this is what I've designed. Can you compare this to a product document and user research to see if anything's missing? I do use it for that. I, of course, go to real people, and I also conduct real design critiques as well. But it can be really valuable for these kinds of moments where you need to quickly poke holes in your thinking. It can help you also figure out how to talk about your work to different audiences. So if you need to deliver a presentation at Design Crit and then to a director in review and then to your VP, you might have to reframe your content for all those cases, and it can help you decide what should be in or out for those different use cases. So AI can help with a lot, but it doesn't forego the fundamentals, and this is something that my friend Jess Harley said. And so we're still going to need to do some of these other things. So these are some things I would recommend against using AI for. AI can't and shouldn't truly innovate for you. It's great for pattern recognition and averaging, but humans are unpredictable, and that lack of predictability is where innovation truly comes from. It cannot replace your true human conviction. It can help you figure out some direction through supporting data, but nothing beats the feeling of strongly knowing which direction is best based on logical conclusions in your gut. And only you can create that feeling for yourself and pass it along to others that you work with. It cannot effectively balance pros and cons on your behalf. I have tried to explain priorities. I've tried to give things different weighting. And really, it's going to be pretty time-consuming to get that level of payoff. It can help you identify some directions to go in, but its decision-making ability, again, is middling. It cannot manage up for you. It cannot get buy-in from your senior leaders. It can help you create documentation, of course. It can help you reframe messaging, but it cannot persuade your leaders in a meeting. You have to build and present a case based on what you know matters to the senior leaders in your organization. This is human-to-human work that is built on a foundation of empathy and conviction. And finally, AI cannot be held responsible for your decisions. It is unacceptable to say, the AI did it, as if that's a reasonable answer. It's just not. AI is not going to be able to be held accountable for your decisions. You can be held accountable, and you will be held accountable. So before I close, I just want to acknowledge that the pressure to learn these tools is real. These instruments, we're learning how to create with them. We are being pushed to figure out which of them and where we can fit them into our work. And at the same time, we need to think critically about where they help us and where they stall us, and how we can retain what makes the work interesting for us as well as designers. We need to figure out a working style that is most effective for us as people, not just efficient for the sake of businesses acquiring capital. Thanks. Back to the picnic. It was a really wonderful space to share what we've all been learning. And even though we had differing opinions, I valued the discussions that I had with everybody who was present. These conversations are important. I hope you've been having them here, and I'm grateful to have them. I'm grateful for Hang as well, who did a lot of the legwork in setting up the picnic. And later that month, I had the opportunity to make some art for my friend Amy's birthday. Shout-outs to Amy. So I decided to do it by hand on my iPad, and it came out perfectly. Craft is more important than ever. Humanity still matters. The tactile and the bespoke still matters. The work feels better, in my opinion, and you're more connected when you have these moments where you can do that work and that thinking by hand. So before you open an AI tool to solve your problem, ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, how much context does the problem require to answer? Is it straightforward, or is there a lot of historical nuance? There's a very large difference between a 0 to 1 situation and 20 years' worth of attempts at solving a problem. Secondly, how expansive do you need to be? Is the solution pretty clear, or do you need to be really divergent and innovative before narrowing in? And then finally, what is the cost of getting this wrong? Is it low risk, or would you be setting money on fire? If your project has a lot of historical context, requires divergent thinking, and is extremely risky to the business, then you need to drive. So open Figma, create a canvas, and get to work. Thank you. If you'd like, here's some other stuff. I run a couple of things. I've got a book, I've got a course. These are both really great resources for learning how to advocate on behalf of your ideas and your vision. So feel free to get 20% off of both of these things if you would like with that stuff here. And then finally, if you would like to play my game, here it is. Cheers all. Have a great rest of your config.